Okay, so this concept isn't new, but I want to talk about it anyway. There's a book called what's it called? How's it called? Something like the Illuminatus. No. Illuminati trilogy. It's something weird like that. I don't know. But it has to do with all this stuff, everything. But it's woven together in a semi-cohesive manner. And at one point when the main character of the book is he's in some lower subsections of a yacht or like an ocean liner type thing. This guy's private yacht. He starts looking around at his situation and how it has gone from mundane and something that he understands into this wacky, insane, totally implausible world where he's the prime and centered character of it, and he can't understand how or why that happened. And then at some point he's talking to another of his buddies or his new friends in the boat, and some piece of the storyline that they're living out hits them as so absurd that he has this like, oh, I'm a character in somebody's book. He has this like epiphany moment, this aha moment, where he realizes that he's living out a script. But he doesn't at that point pack up his bags and get off the adventure. No, he incorporates that into his new reality as an integral aspect, and if anything, it probably enhances his experience rather than diminish anything. So this is bringing me back to the original topic I wanted to talk about, which is the idea that if you're thinking in terms of scientific, not dystopian, but just super sci-fi, all the stuff that you can't possibly imagine as actually being an experience, so like a lived experience. You can only imagine it in terms of, oh, this is a story that somebody wrote in their book. Okay, so if you take the idea that consciousness, or the awareness, the sensory and cognitive awareness of the surrounding realm, right? If you take that concept and imagine that capacity could be ported or transferred into another body, a computer chip, into the sun, into any element that can be imagined, if the consciousness could be ported into that somehow, or into a preset storyline, a prefabbed storyline, for instance, if the consciousness could be ported into that, and the consciousness gets in there, okay, say it's going into a tape recorder. Just consider there as a tape. Back in the old days where we had these cassette tapes, you plugged it in and it had this little film magnetic strip that the recorder read, and it spit out a story, like it's a glorified or high-tech version of the record player. That's what the tape recorder is. That's the next evolutionary step of the record player. So it's been condensed, it's smaller, it's more convenient. You don't have to worry about the needle skipping around if you want to like run. It would be kind of difficult to run with a record player strapped onto the side of your arm, you know. All the bouncing would probably make the needle skip around a little bit, and it's just inconvenient. So the tape recorder is the next evolutionary step for from the record player, and then we move on to what we have now. Now we have, we went on to television, we went on to iPhones. Well, the typewriter was in there at some juncture. But the idea is that I like crunching leaves. This reminds me of being a child. We would, still a child, but when I was a smaller child, we'd make these massive leaf piles, and I always had the idea that I wanted to make a huge leaf pile and use it kind of like a safety pad to jump from the top of my roof, which was, a good 12-13 feet. I also had another brilliant idea of hopping off the roof with an umbrella, a big umbrella, and I did that off of the 8-foot portion of the patio, but it didn't do very much to dampen my fall. It's kind of a stupid idea. No broken legs though. So back to the original premise of this recording. Love the crunches. Okay, so your consciousness, your conscious awareness is being ported into a cassette tape. We'll use that example because it's pretty straightforward and it's not difficult for the mind to comprehend. The inner workings of a computer are more difficult. But just imagine a tape cassette. There's a verbal storyline. Has a start point A, point B. The storyline is exactly as it is. It's preset, it's prefabbed. And once your consciousness gets ported into the audio portion of that, okay, you forget that you ever had capacity for a visual or sensual, like touch sensation. You forget that you had that, except for enough memory of what it was so you can imagine, when you hear them talking about touching something, that you have that cognitive capacity still. But the fact that you aren't currently in a body, that has been taken care of for you, so you don't freak out about that, okay? Now once you're inside of this, once you've been ported, once your consciousness has been ported into this tape recorder, okay, your body is taken care of for you, okay? It's being kept in a chamber, it's being fed properly, everything has been done to properly take care of that body while you're gone, okay? Now, when you come into this, when you get ported into this secondary version of consciousness, because it's a stepping down from your bodily awareness into a tape recorder, audio only recording, and you get ported into the memory of the character, okay, that you receive the memories of that character as well, whoever's the main character of the story. So if it's a detective and he's solving a murder mystery crime, well, you have all of the attributes and memories of a detective as necessary to make the storyline cohesive. Now you might say, well, where's the free will in that? Because once you've been ported inside of the tape recorder, okay, you don't get to make any choices as to how you handle cases. You don't get to make any choices as to what you put on in the morning, what you eat for breakfast, who your girlfriend is, what sexual position you enjoy, any of those things, okay? You don't have any control over it whatsoever. You are simply a witness of the recording of the audio. And if perchance deep in your psyche, because the real you that's been sleeping in the body next door or next dimension, that you is still carrying yourself. It's still carrying your soul essence, your beingness. It's still there. It's just that you're mainly being focused to your present awareness, knowledge of this detective story tape recording, right? That you've voluntarily or through manufactured consent, right? That's the thing, right? One of those two, you got in there, and you no longer have any free will to apparent free will, okay? You no longer have any semblance of any free will to modify or alter any of the outcomes, any of the predetermined outcomes of the storyline that was prefabbed for that particular tape cassette. Now, when you're in there, okay, if a bit of your prior body consciousness, your truer essence, decides that, oh man, this guy's got to come back, he's wasting time in there, or something more important is happening over here with the body and he needs to come back, inside of the tape recording, there's not going to be any direct way for him to receive that message because it's not part of the prefabbed storyline, okay? So he's going to be walking along amongst an orchard along the prefab storyline, and all of a sudden there's going to be something else inside of him that's tugging, but it has no way of manifesting into the current realm because there's no way of expressing that which has not been previously recorded for that particular experience. So it becomes difficult for him, who's now fully or nearly fully identified with the character, the detective that's in the tape cassette. He's very much identified with that, and he believes that is him, and he has no memory of his prior body. So when he gets this urge or this kind of heartbreak or heartache or just a pulling, inner knowing, whatever you want to call it, it can't have any physical manifestations in the realm or in the tape cassette because that's not pre-recorded in there, and it simply cannot exist. What he's doing is he's accessing or remembering his true essence, which is in the body that's sleeping, while this portion of that consciousness has been ported into the tape cassette. And to make matters more complicated, if you like that, if you can use your imagination and extrapolate out beyond a simple detective story, okay, that's one example among nearly infinite possible storylines that can be extrapolated from that. And if you imagine all the different storylines, and then if you throw in there the possibility that there could be some nefarious things going on, some profit motivation going on, some selfish, greedy things going on, then you can imagine that somebody might have done a manufactured consent type thing where the person gets into this tape cassette recorded deal with manufactured consent where he didn't really know exactly what he was getting into, and now he may, after having known more of that, want to get out, need to get out, whatever, but the forces that be that want him in there would put up roadblocks everywhere, so it would make it extremely difficult for him to get back to his original form, or one of his original forms, which is the body that's sleeping in wherever, that's being sustained however, that he completely forgot about. So, in addition, to make this more difficult, if you like that, if you want someone to stay inside the tape recorder, well, what are you going to program it with? It would be wise to program it with the character going through all sorts of motions, like, man, I really need to get the fuck out of the realm. How do I do this? Okay, character is pre-recorded to go look up a bunch of things on the internet. Okay, character is pre-recorded to start fearing government, start fearing all forms of authority. Character is pre-programmed to feel like he or she doesn't fit in with the society that's pre-recorded into that realm. Character is this and that and the other thing. And so while he's fully embodying this character or this storyline, it's gonna feel like he's wanting out and going through the requisite motions to get out, when in reality, in storyline reality, that's just a pre-recorded thing that he's been ported into, and that's all it is. So for the true essence to break through and get into that storyline, it has to come via other means, via non-visible means, because the visible means are the storyline. Ya dig? Get it? You see, this is where the corn maze was, or the cornfield that I was gonna go plunging through was supposed to be, but it's not here. So maybe I'll just walk in the dirt for like 5 seconds. Sort of like walking a corn maze. It's like walking in the memory of a corn maze. Broken corn dreams. Anyway. So that's why I emphasize, and everyone in all of recorded history, or all of the hidden knowledge, the wisdom, the masters, that's why everybody would have you to have some stillness in your life and to examine what it is that you are, what it is that you're doing. Know thyself, be still and know that I am God. You've heard of that one. Meditation, observe, be the witness, because the importance of these things is they allow you, okay, as the consciousness, not as the identified with the prefabbed tape recording consciousness, but the one that sees the recording and also knows that it's well beyond that at the same time. The stillness and the silence allows you to differentiate between the two. So you're still able to live the recording and also live the recording without the feeling like you're living in a deterministic, sucky world where you don't have any choices. You're able to live the recording, or however you want to characterize what it is that we're experiencing here, because you don't have to characterize it in just one way. You have multiple ways at your disposal for how you want to view this subjective experience. You have multiple ways. You have an infinite number of ways, okay? You don't need to project 1,000 years into the future all the time. You don't need to project 20 years into your financial future all the time. You don't need to project 2 feet into the future all the time. You don't need to project an inch into the future or into the past. You don't ever need to do any of that. You don't have to do any of that, but you will never realize that unless you give yourself pause and space to see what you are, to feel what you are. If you don't ever do that, you'll never know. You will simply live out the recording, and then all of a sudden it will be done and you will be back wherever you were beforehand, but you won't have witnessed what was going on. You won't have gained anything from it. You won't have added to the whole or the oversoul or wherever you came from. They'll ask you, that's the story of the Bible. Like I gave him, this guy 10 credits and he turned it into 20. I gave this guy 5, he turned it into 10. I gave this other guy 1 credit and that guy just buried it. And he's like, I kept it safe for you, master. I kept it safe for you. And then he's like, well, all right, we're going to take even that one away from you. And that's tough love, That's tough love. It's not just easy here. You got to put something into it. You got to put some effort in. You got to put some stillness in. You got to reach out for help from other people. You can't do it all yourself. Put some time in, put some experimenting in. Try the plans, try the projections, try not those. Try giving yourself a 5-day meditation retreat to feel what stillness feels like. Don't just sit around and let the same patterning happen to you over and over and over, because that's exactly what's going to happen. If you don't put any effort into it, just the patterning is going to happen over and over and over and over, and you're not going to recognize it, because built in within the patterning are little spurts and snippets that say, oh, I'm doing something, I'm trying something, because that's built into the tape recorder. Do you understand? It's built into the tape recorder. It's built into the cassette. There are little things in there that are built in that make you feel like, oh, I'm making progress, oh, I'm doing this. The way to differentiate if it's just a recording or if you're actually having effect on your life is if they generally stay do. Like if the graph goes up and down slightly, but it just stays overall exactly the same. That's an easy way to determine it. Ah, yes. Not good focus. I don't even know what these things are. I don't know. But anyway, this was a long one. I just went for a mile run, so I'm probably feeling a little bit spunky today. So anyway, just watch your life.